One encrypted letter sent on Monday, January 26th, just shattered 70 years of trust between allies. Germany officially demanded the immediate return of 1,236 tons of gold from the Federal Reserve vaults. Not over 10 years, not gradually. By December 31st, 2026, all of it. Physical metal, verified, secured. This is not a symbolic gesture. This is not political theater for the German public ahead of elections. This is a sovereign bank run on the world's reserve currency, and the clock is ticking faster than you think. The demand leaked through Handelsblatt, Germany's leading financial newspaper, on January 27, 2026. High-level sources inside the Bundestag Budget Committee confirmed every detail of this confidential letter. The Bundesbank sent it directly to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. The message was crystal clear. We want our gold back. We want it now. No excuses, no delays, no bureaucratic games about logistics or security. At current gold prices, we are talking about $194 billion of sovereign wealth sitting in a Manhattan vault. That vault sits 80 feet below street level at 33 Liberty Street. It is supposed to be the safest place on Earth. Germany stored their gold there during the Cold War because Soviet tanks were just miles from Frankfurt's borders. Back then, it made sense. The Red Army was the existential threat. New York was the fortress. America was the ally. But the Cold War ended 35 years ago. The Soviet Union is dust. And the relationship between Berlin and Washington? It has curdled into mutual suspicion, economic warfare, and now open distrust over the safety of sovereign assets. Germany does not trust the Fed anymore. And if Germany does not trust the Fed, nobody else should either. This is not about gold. This is about the fracture of the Western alliance that built the post-war monetary order. For 7 decades, storing gold in New York was the ultimate symbol of trust between Washington and its allies. It was a handshake deal. It was the foundation of NATO. It was the glue that held the dollar system together. That trust just evaporated, and when central banks stop trusting each other, the entire currency system cracks. If this video is opening your eyes to what is really happening right now, hit that like button immediately. Drop a comment below and tell me, "Vault empty," so I know you are actually paying attention to this crisis. Let us get into why this demand changes everything you thought you knew about the global financial system. Germany is not acting from a position of strength here. They are acting out of raw fear, and fear spreads fast. Michael Zoller, the president of the Taxpayers Association of Europe, said it out loud just 3 days ago. He told the press, "Trump is unpredictable. He does everything he can to generate revenue for the United States. That is why our gold is no longer safe in the Fed's vaults. The risk is rising that Germany cannot access it." This is not some fringe conspiracy theorist ranting on the internet about secret plots and hidden manipulation. This is a leading voice in European finance publicly stating that the U.S. government might seize German assets. Let that thought settle in your mind for a second. A NATO ally, a G7 nation, saying this in mainstream media. Emanuel Munch, a former head of research at the Bundesbank itself, echoed the exact same concerns this week. Here's the question that is quietly circulating through every bullion trading desk from London to Singapore right now. Does the gold even exist? And I'm not talking about conspiracy theories pulled from the depths of the internet. I am talking about a legitimate structural problem with how central banking and gold custody actually works behind the scenes. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York does not own the gold sitting in that vault at 33 Liberty Street in Manhattan. It acts as a custodian. It is a storage facility. The bars belong to foreign nations and international organizations. Germany owns 1,236 tons. Italy owns hundreds of tons. The IMF has gold there. But here's where it gets complicated. In the world of central banking, idle gold is considered a wasted asset. Gold sitting in a vault pays no interest. So central banks engage in something called gold leasing. They lend their gold to bullion banks for a small lease rate. The bullion banks, giants like JP Morgan, HSBC, and Scotiabank, take that physical gold and sell it into the market. Why would they do that? To suppress prices, to raise cash for other trades, or to hedge massive derivative positions? The physical bar leaves the vault. It gets melted down. It gets shipped to China or India and turned into jewelry or coins. But on the official books of the central bank, the gold is still listed as an asset. It is owed back by the bullion bank. This creates a nightmare scenario called rehypothecation. Multiple parties believe they own the exact same ounce of gold. Germany thinks it owns the gold because their ledger says so. The bullion bank owes it back as a liability on their books. And the Chinese investor who bought the physical bar from the bullion bank actually holds the metal in Shanghai right now. Now apply this mechanic to the Berlin demand. Germany wants 236 tons of physical metal delivered by December 31st. If that gold has been leased out, and market analysts estimate a significant portion of official reserves are encumbered this way, the metal is not sitting in the vault. To fulfill Germany's order, the Fed or the bullion banks have to buy it back. They have to go into the open market and source 1,236 tons of physical gold in a market already in a structural deficit. Buying back 1,236 tons is not like buying 1,236 shares of Apple stock. The liquidity does not exist at current prices. Attempting to source that amount of physical metal would send the spot price to 5,000, 7,000, maybe 10,000. It would trigger a commercial short squeeze of absolutely biblical proportions. The bullion banks would face infinite losses. They sold gold they borrowed at $2,000 an ounce. Now they have to buy it back at $7,000 an ounce. That is bankruptcy. That is systemic collapse. That is why the timeline Germany gave them is so absolutely critical here. 11 months until December 31st, 2026. In the previous repatriation between 2013 and 2017, the Fed said it would take 7 years. In the end, it took 4 years to return just 300 tons. Why did it take so long to move 300 tons of metal? You can load that much gold onto a few cargo planes and fly it across the Atlantic in a single week if you wanted to. Rumors swirled at the time that the Fed did not have the original German bars sitting in the vault ready to ship out. The bars Germany received were not the same serial numbers they deposited back in the 1950s and 1960s during the Cold War. Many were newly cast bars with fresh timestamps from refineries. This implies the Fed had to scramble to source new gold. They had to refine new metal to pay Germany back. They had to rob Peter to pay Paul. They did not have the original bars. Now the demand is 4 times larger, 1,136 tons versus 300 tons. And the timeline is 4 times shorter, 1 year versus 4. The math does not work, and the market knows it. The Fed cannot deliver without destroying the price discovery mechanism. So what happens next? There are only 3 possible outcomes, and every single one of them breaks something in the system. Outcome 1, the Fed delivers the gold. They actually move 1,136 tons of physical metal to Frankfurt by the end of the year. If they do this, it confirms the vault had the metal all along, but it also drains New York of nearly 20% of its holdings. That is a massive physical shortage in the very hub that is supposed to set the global price for gold every single day. Other central banks will see this. Italy holds gold in New York. The Netherlands holds gold there. So does Turkey and Mexico. If Germany successfully pulls their metal out, every other nation will immediately demand theirs back before the vault runs dry. This creates a cascading run on the Fed's gold custody system. The vault empties, confidence collapses, the dollar loses its anchor. Outcome 2. The Fed refuses or delays the request. They cite logistical challenges, security concerns, or geopolitical instability. This is effectively a default. It is an admission that the gold is not available. It is paper gold, a financial fiction on a ledger. If the Fed cannot or will not return sovereign gold to a NATO ally, what does that say about every other dollar-denominated asset? If Germany cannot trust a vault in New York, why would anyone trust a treasury bond, a bank deposit, or a digital dollar account? This would trigger the mother of all flights to safety. Capital would pour into physical assets that cannot be frozen or denied. Gold, silver, Bitcoin, anything outside the traditional banking system would explode in value as trust in institutions evaporates. Outcome 3. The Fed delivers the gold, but it takes longer than December 31st. They ask for an extension. They negotiate delays. This is the soft default. It buys time. But it also confirms the worst suspicions. The metal was not ready. It had to be sourced. Every month of delay reinforces the narrative that the vault is not what it claims to be. Premiums on physical gold will skyrocket. We are already seeing this divergence happen in real time right now. Paper gold on the COMEX trades at one price on the screen. But physical gold in Dubai, Shanghai, and Tokyo trades at a massive premium. People are paying 10, 15, 20% more for real metal. If you are still with me and this is starting to make sense, smash that like button and drop a comment saying outcome 3. Let me know which scenario you think is most likely. I read every single comment. Now let me show you why Germany moved now. This is not random. Germany did not wake up one morning and decide to demand their gold back on a whim after 70 years of trust. Something changed, and that something is the weaponization of the financial system that happened in February 2022 during Ukraine. When Russia invaded Ukraine, the United States, the UK, and the European Union took an unprecedented step that shocked the world. They froze $300 billion of the central bank of Russia's foreign exchange reserves. These were sovereign central bank assets. Under international law and centuries of banking custom, central bank reserves were considered sacrosanct, immune from seizure. The West shattered that norm. They turned the reserve currency system into a weapon, and the rest of the world watched in horror. Central bankers in Beijing, Riyadh, New Delhi, and yes, Berlin learned a terrifying lesson that day in February 2022. If you do not physically hold it, you do not actually own it. Sovereign immunity does not exist if you cross Washington. Your assets are only yours if the sitting U.S. president agrees with your foreign policy decisions at any given moment. Germany watched what happened to Russia, and now Germany is watching what is happening with the Trump administration. The Greenland ultimatum was the breaking point. Trump threatened 100% tariffs on European goods to force Denmark to sell. This was not diplomacy. This was extortion, and it sent a clear message to every European capital from Paris to Berlin. The United States views its allies as vassal states to be bullied, not partners to be respected in any meaningful way. Germany's economy is built on exports. Volkswagen, BASF, Siemens, BMW. These companies depend on global trade to survive. And here's the problem. 40% of their profits come from China. Germany cannot afford to decouple from Beijing. But the Trump administration is demanding exactly that. Choose us or choose China. There is no middle ground anymore. If Germany refuses to cut ties with China, what happens? Does the U.S. declare Germany a currency manipulator next? Does the U.S. sanction German companies under some national security pretext? Does the U.S. freeze German assets in retaliation? Before 2022, this idea was absolutely insane. It was unthinkable between NATO allies who built the post-war order together. Today, in January 2026, it is a legitimate risk management scenario that every German policymaker is taking very seriously. Michael Zoller said it out loud. The risk is increasing that the Bundesbank will no longer be able to access its gold. This is not about gold bars sitting in a vault. This is about Germany preparing for a world where the alliance is dead. By moving the gold to Frankfurt, they ensure that no matter what diplomatic war erupts over tariffs, trade, or NATO funding, their ultimate collateral, their financial anchor, is within their own physical jurisdiction where Washington cannot touch it. They can use that gold to settle trade with China, India, or Russia without needing U.S. permission or approval from the Fed. This is also a signal about the future of the euro. The Eurozone is quietly preparing for a post-dollar world right now. The European Central Bank has been encouraging member states to increase their gold reserves for the past 3 years. Poland has been buying gold aggressively. The Netherlands repatriated gold. Hungary repatriated gold. The pattern is clear. If the euro is going to survive a dollar collapse or a global debt reset, it needs a tangible anchor. It needs real backing. Germany's 3,350 tons of total gold reserves are that anchor. It is the financial ballast of the entire European project. But an anchor is completely useless if it is stored in the captain's quarters of a rival ship sailing in the opposite direction. You cannot stabilize your currency with gold you physically cannot touch, cannot move, and cannot use without permission. The repatriation is the physical decoupling of the euro from the dollar system. It is monetary independence for Europe. It is the end of the transatlantic trust that built the Bretton Woods system, NATO, and the entire post-war financial order. Germany is preparing to go it alone, and when Germany moves, the rest of Europe follows. This is the fracture of the West. Now let me connect this directly to you. If the German government, with all its diplomatic channels and intelligence resources, does not trust the Federal Reserve to hold its wealth safely, why should you trust any institution in the banking system? If a G7 nation, a founding pillar of NATO, is worried about confiscation and counterparty risk from its closest ally, You should be absolutely terrified about what that means for your savings, your retirement accounts, and your financial future. Germany is telling you something critical right now. The banking system is not safe. Paper claims are worthless in a real crisis. When the giants start fighting over the scraps, the little guy gets crushed. And you are the little guy in this scenario. So what should you be watching as this crisis unfolds over the next 11 months? Let me give you the key indicators. Watch the COMEX gold inventory. If registered gold available for delivery keeps dropping, the squeeze is getting worse. Watch physical premiums in Dubai, Shanghai, and Tokyo. If the gap between paper and physical keeps widening, trust is collapsing. Watch for news about other central banks making repatriation requests. Italy, Netherlands, Turkey. If they move, it is a stampede. Watch the gold lease rates. When it costs more to borrow physical gold, it means supply is extremely tight behind the scenes. And most importantly, watch what the Fed actually does when December 31st approaches. Do they deliver or do they stall? If they deliver the full 1,236 tons on time, the vault had the metal, but confidence in New York as a storage hub is destroyed. If they delay or refuse, it is a default that confirms the worst fears. The gold is gone. The system is a fiction. Either way, the trust that held the Western financial system together for 80 years is finished. It cannot be rebuilt. The Berlin demand is Germany calling the bluff. They want to see the cards. They want to see the actual physical metal. If the metal is there, the Fed loses power because it loses the collateral that anchors confidence in the dollar system. If the metal is not there, the system collapses because the fraud is exposed, and trust in institutions evaporates instantly. This is not about one country demanding gold back. This is about the end of the dollar standard as we have known it. Germany has made their move, the clock is ticking, and by December 31st, 2026, we will know if the vault was ever real. If this video opened your eyes to what is really happening, share it. Send it to someone who needs to understand this. The mainstream media will not cover this story the way it deserves, but you saw it here. Now help someone else see it too. Hit subscribe. I am breaking down what the big players are doing so you are never caught off guard when the system shifts. The era of blind trust in the dollar is over. The vault door is closing. This is the hidden economy. Stay sharp.